The sound of the wind cut through the narrow alley, carrying with it the distant echo of footsteps that would never come. The trash can sat like a shadow, with the remains of forgotten, discarded lives, as if the city itself had lost hope in it. And there, in the cold shadow, was he. The dog. He didn't bark. He didn't ask for anything. His thin body was covered in dirt, and his small, dark eyes observed the world with a calm that belied the misery around him. He didn't belong here, but there was nowhere to go. He was the last, the most forgotten, the last in the trash. There was no more room for him in the world. It was late at night when a woman appeared. The wind had brought her to him, but she did not know it. She walked slowly, her shoulders slumped, her feet heavy as if the world had made her crawl there. When she saw him, she stopped, hesitated for a moment. The dog raised his head, his eyes full of something indefinite. He seemed to sense that she needed something, but he did not know what. She did not know either. She looked at him, and for a second, something inside her snapped. There were no words. Just silence. Then, with a smooth, almost automatic movement, she crouched down. It was as if she had made this choice before, as if she were simply finding a lost piece of herself. Deep down, she knew. Maybe he was the one who needed her. Or maybe she was the one who needed him. Clara had been lost long before she met that dog. The hours were endless, a succession of days passing in a haze of routine and discomfort. She could never remember a time when she felt truly connected, not to the people around her, not to the place where she lived, not to her own life. It all felt like an empty echo, a reverberation of something that once had meaning but was now dead. Clara had lost her mother years ago, a loss that had scarred her so deeply that she refused to talk about it with anyone. Words seemed too small for such an immense void. She shut herself away from everyone, built invisible walls around herself, and found solace in her daily routines. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was. She walked through the city streets, her hands tightly wrapped around her purse, her eyes staring at the ground, as if she feared contact with the world. People passed by her, but none of them really saw her. It was as if she were shrouded in an invisible fog, a silent prison of her own making. Her face was marked by weariness and sadness, and her eyes, once lively, were now dull, empty of hope. The truth is that Clara no longer knew how to live. She had grown accustomed to the pain, the loneliness, the weight of loss. Until that night, the dog's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment she felt a change. He no longer looked at her with pity. He simply saw her as no one else had done for a long time. He saw something in her that she herself could no longer see. A spark of life, a possibility of something new, something that could heal the open wounds inside her. On that cold night when the silence seemed heavy and the darkness swallowed everything around her, Clara felt an invisible hand guiding her to him. The dog, who before seemed to be on the edge of the world, now seemed to be waiting for her. He didn't move. He didn't approach in a hurry, but his presence was undeniable. It was as if he knew she needed something he could offer, but in a silent, wordless way. Clara, her heart beating faster, leaned forward slowly. She reached out hesitantly, not knowing what to expect. He looked at her with his deep, small eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness in the world, but also something more. There was a quiet wisdom there, a quiet understanding that he was somehow the last one who could still help. He approached her cautiously, moving slowly as if he had learned over the course of his short, difficult life that trust was something that was earned slowly. Clara's touch on his fur was light, almost uncertain, but the dog didn't flinch. He was there, waiting for her, as if he knew that she, like him, was trying to find her place again. There were no words between them, but a deep connection formed in the silence, something that transcended pain, loss, and fear. The woman finally stood up and looked at him, feeling a peace she had never imagined she could experience. "You are alone too," she murmured softly, more to herself than to the dog. The answer, however, was there, evident. Yes, he was alone. And just like her, perhaps he had been left aside, forgotten by everyone. But there, in that dark corner, the two of them were together. And in that moment, Clara knew that something had changed. It was the beginning of a new journey. A journey without promises, but with the possibility of healing. In the days that followed, Clara began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. A need to care, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. The dog, whom she had yet to name, seemed to fit into her life in a way she couldn't explain. It was as if he was always there, waiting patiently. A calm presence that offered reassurance without demanding anything in return. He wanted nothing more than Clara's simple company, and somehow that gave him the strength to carry on. The dog followed Clara home and she let him in, almost as if it were a wordless invitation to something deeper. Little by little, he became a constant in her life. The house, which had once felt empty, was now filled with small moments of warmth. The sound of his paws on the hardwood floor, the glances they shared as she fed him, the silent smiles when he curled up next to her on the couch. It wasn't anything grand, but it was enough to make Clara begin to feel something she thought she had lost forever. Connection. But not everything was simple. Clara still carried the scars of her past and often felt withdrawn, unable to deal with the emotions that arose with intensity. She felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt, as if by accepting the dog's presence, she was betraying something she had lost. She felt an internal resistance, a fear that, by giving herself too much, she could also lose what she was beginning to conquer. The dog, with his calm eyes, seemed to understand this more than she did. In moments of silence, Clara would find herself looking at him and feeling a deep ache in her chest, as if the love he offered was a bitter reminder of something she could never have again. He, in turn, seemed to understand each of these moments, and his presence was gentle, unhurried, as if time were no threat. He demanded nothing more from her than what she was willing to give, and that, more than anything else, was a lesson in patience and acceptance. The dog became her silent mirror. He was there without judgment, just being. And Clara, little by little, began to learn that true healing did not come from rushing, but from the ability to simply be, to accept life and emotions as they were. He taught her to be kinder to herself, to allow herself to feel without fear that the pain would take over again. Their relationship grew organically, without forcing anything, but with a solid foundation of trust that was built on small daily gestures. Clara began to smile more, without realizing it. The shadows in her heart began to dissipate, a small light of hope beginning to shine, fueled by the simple presence of that dog. One afternoon, Clara was struck by a strange sensation. The dog, who never strayed far, seemed agitated, restless. He stood at the front door looking out as if something were calling him, something invisible that she could not understand. He had never displayed this behavior before, always calm, always in her shadow. He now seemed somehow distant, immersed in a silent search. Clara, her heart racing, called his name softly, but he did not respond. Instead, he ran to the gate, looking back at her one last time, his eyes reflecting a silent sadness. Clara, overcome by an inexplicable feeling, followed him. He was not running as if he were fleeing, but as if he were going to a place he knew somehow, as if he had something important to accomplish, something she could not understand. And for a moment, Clara found herself standing still, her eyes fixed on the dog as he walked away, and an unfamiliar fear began to take hold of her chest. It was a sense of impending loss, something she had known before, but now it hurt in a whole new way. She called out to him again, her voice cracking this time, but he just kept walking step after step. Clara followed but soon lost his trail, the sound of his paws fading as the street grew quieter, darker. She searched for hours but could not find him. The dog, the one who had come to heal her broken soul, was now missing. Her pain was deep, but at the same time Clara understood something she could not understand before. The dog had somehow fulfilled his mission. He had helped her see what she had lost in herself. He had taught her to find again a little piece of hope, a ray of light that had been buried by sadness. She walked back into the house, her footsteps heavy, and sat down on the couch where he usually lay. The house was too quiet now. But then she heard something, a soft, almost imperceptible sound coming from outside. It was a familiar sound. Paws on the hardwood floor, the faint rustle of something moving in the hallway. Clara stood up quickly, her heart pounding, and when she looked out the window, there he was, the dog. He was back, but he was no longer alone. He had brought something else with him, a small box carefully placed at his feet. Clara approached cautiously, but the dog moved away, giving her space to pick him up. When she opened the box, she found something simple but full of meaning. An old photo, a memory that had been lost in time, something she had forgotten but that was now before her again. It was a photo of her mother, an image that represented the connection she still felt with her, even after so much time. The dog, seeing Clara's reaction, lay down beside her, looking at her with calm eyes as if he knew she had already found what she needed. Clara then felt a wave of gratitude and peace invade her heart. He had guided her back to what she thought she had lost forever. The memory of her mother, the bond that never broke, and the ability to love again. She looked at her dog, and with a soft, tearful smile, she said, "You are my angel, my friend." And with those words, she knew that she could finally move on. The pain of loss would never be completely erased, but now she knew that healing lay in accepting the loss as part of her story, and no longer as a burden. As the months passed, Clara found a balance she never imagined possible. The dog, with his constant and silent presence, was her faithful companion, always by her side, in no hurry to demand more than she could give. Little by little, the pain of loss turned into a gentle longing, a memory that did not paralyze her, but inspired her to live more fully. The bond between them, which had once seemed like a simple friendship, now became something much deeper. Clara saw him not only as a friend, but as a bridge between her and the most forgotten parts of her own heart. He had helped her reconnect with feelings she had thought buried, the ability to trust, to love, to laugh without fear. He had given her the courage to believe that happiness was not limited to what she had lost, but to what she could still gain. On a spring day, Clara walked through the park, her dog at her side, her step firm, but easy. The air was crisp, and the trees around her had begun to blossom, bringing with them a new promise. As they walked, Clara reflected on the journey she had taken, on the moments that seemed so distant now, but were still alive within her. "I don't know how you knew," Clara said, looking at the dog walking beside her. "But you taught me that love isn't just about what we give, but also about what we are capable of receiving. And most importantly, that even when everything seems lost, there is still room for a new beginning." The dog stopped, looked at her with those serene eyes, and for a moment Clara felt an immense peace take over her heart. There was no more mourning, no more doubts. There was only the acceptance of what was and what would be, the love that blossomed in her life, both for him and for the memory of the mother she had rediscovered. Clara felt the gentle breeze on her face, and as she looked up at the sky, she smiled. The pain of the past had not disappeared, but now she had the ability to look at it with gratitude, as something that had shaped her and prepared her to live again. She knew that with the dog by her side, nothing would ever be the same again. But maybe deep down, that was exactly what she needed. Life, she realized, is made up of moments of surrender, of silent struggles and personal victories. And now, she was ready to move on, carrying with her the lesson that the dog, in such a simple, unpretentious way, had taught her. And so, with him by her side, Clara knew that the future was not a lonely journey. It was a journey of love, of discovery, and above all, of healing. If this story touched your heart, just imagine how many more are still to come. Here, every bark carries a new beginning, a second chance, a brand new life. If you believe in the power of dogs to change destinies, like mine, like yours, then subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because together we'll share stories the world needs to hear and feel.